I'd like to show you some specialized but related layers. They're called fill layers. Where do you find them? Well, they're under the layer menu up here under new fill layer. And you can see they come in three flavors: solid, gradient, and pattern. Let's take a look at the solid one first. As soon as I clicked on it, I get this new layer dialog box that just says, okay, I've got a new layer here. And I click on that and I get my color picker. Now this color picker is not the same as when you click on the color picker in your toolbar here. This is a color picker that you activate by clicking on the color swatch over here in the color fill layer. And you can see now that it's black. What I can do here is I can change that to a different color just by picking a new color either in my color picker here, or I can come up to my swatches and I can pick a new color within the swatches. Well, for right now, let's go with the black. And let's see what we can do with this. Well, you know that my original image looks like this, and if I come up here to my blend modes and I look at this color fill layer in color blend mode, all of a sudden it turns my image black and white. And what I can do is dial back the opacity here to bring some of the color of the image through. But that's not all I can do with this. If I double click on the swatch here on the color fill layer, it brings up my color picker again, and I can change the colors that I'm looking at on my image. And again, I can come up here and I can pick a color from the swatches. Now what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to pick this sepia color like that. Let's make it a little lighter sepia. Even come up like that. There we go. And what I can do here is I can come over and activate my layer mask, and let's go in here and paint with black in that layer mask. And what happens when we paint with black? Well, it hides the mask, and what's below that mask comes through. And in this case, the thing that's coming through is the color of the leaf. Now I did spill over here a little bit. I'm not too concerned about that, but you know that if you're working with the layer mask, all you do is you switch and you start painting with white, and you can clean up any areas that you happen to mess up. Okay, that is the solid fill. Well, let's take a look at the next option. The next option is the gradient. So we're going to put a gradient fill on here. And you can see that my gradient is now going from my foreground color to clear. And what I can do here, of course, I can reverse it, or I can change the angle of it if I wanted to, or I could change this from a linear to a radial, or to an angle or reflected, or whatever I wanted to do here. But what I'm going to do on this right now is let's go back to linear, and let's change the angle here like that. I'm going to say OK. Now I can do a similar thing here as I did before. If I double click on this, it brings up my fill, and I'm going to go in and, well, let's go to my gradient here, and we can pick a different gradient to go in and to look at. Now if we just go to a black, from a black to white, we have this, and now I can change my blend mode, come down to the color blend mode, and you can see that, well, this is a black and white image now. If on the other hand, I had come in here and I had used my black to clear, then you can see that this side of the image is black and white and this side of the image is color. And I have a nice transition from the color to the black and white image. Okay, what can I do next? Well, next I can come in and I'm going to go to my layer menu again, and I'm going to bring down a pattern. Now I click OK, and it brings up my pattern fill dialog box. And I can come in here just by clicking right over here, and I can show all the various types of patterns that I could fill this layer with. Now, if I want to get some new patterns, there's a button right here that I click that just allows me to come down and to pick out a bunch of other patterns. Let's maybe go in and pick some texture fills here. And I can have an option here. Either I can append these or I can replace them. I chose to append it, and here's some textures that I can bring in here and fill into this image. All right, so let's just take this one and let's just see what this will do for me. So I say, okay, here's my pattern fill, and I come over here and I'm going to look at this under a lot of different blend modes. And the easiest way to do that is to pick my move tool up at the top, which then allows me to hold down my shift key and use the plus or minus keys to switch between or amongst all the blend modes. And you can see here that this is looking different with each blend mode that I step through. In this case, it looks pretty bad, but you get the idea of what you can do with it. And we're going to come down to luminosity. Luminosity looks kind of interesting, so let's go back to normal. Now, I can also just go in and dial down my opacity with this, and of course, since I have a layer mask, I can also go in and change that. Okay, now, what if I have a pattern or another image that I want to do this with? Well, that's really not part of the fill layer, but it's essentially like using a fill layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the bridge. I'm going to use the mini bridge because I'm in Photoshop CS5. And here is an image of a texture that I photographed. And we'll put this here. And of course it comes in as a smart object. And I'm going to just scale this out. Okay. I'm going to hit my enter key to accept it. And now I'm going to step through my blend modes here, and let's see if there's something here that looks interesting. Well, let's see. There's lighting kind of looks neat. I might be able to go in and reduce the opacity of this a bit. Well, that doesn't really do it for me. And screen, color dodge. But you can see that there's a lot of different things that you can use here. Hard light looks interesting. Linear light looks good. Pin light. And here's difference. We have a nice texture coming through on that. But basically we just go through and we look at all of these. Oh, there we go. Luminosity. Wow, that looks really kind of neat. So what I can do here is I can put a layer mask on here and I can paint this with the black. Let's go into the brush tool here. I can paint this with black in here and maybe just bring this leaf out like that. There we go. And that looks kind of interesting. But anyway, you see what you can do with this, with a combination of fill layers or just images of textures and blending modes.